I understand the conditions that have been created that have led to this chilling effect of people feeling like they can't speak out on certain things, or they can't do or say what they believe to be right or correct, or they can't even state certain objective facts. People won't even, Matt Walsh from Daily Wire made a whole movie going around asking people, what is a woman? Everyone knows the answer. Every single person in that documentary knows the exact answer. They won't say it because ultimately they're cowards.
What is really worrying is that the people in that film that you talked about, it's the academics, the people who are, if you like, educating up our young, who are most reluctant to deal with reality.
Yeah, and it's not hard to understand why, but it's because those conditions have been created. But how have those conditions been created? It's through cowardice. It's one of the reasons why I even became more outspoken. Because I've had these conversations, anyone who knows me privately, I've had these conversations with people for a very long time. But in 2018 in particular, I was like, you know what? My voice is needed in some of these conversations. I didn't plan on being, okay, I want to be this warrior for free speech or liberty or anything like that. But I was just like, look, this stuff is getting insane on multiple levels. I don't like this narrative, that narrative, the race conversation, the gender conversation, the male-female relationships conversation, this, like the whole COVID stuff. I'm like, look, this is that latter one coming later down the line. But I'm just like, look, not what needs to be said is not being said, and people are afraid to say it. And it's weird when you can tell when people know the truth or they know reality, but they won't say it because they're afraid of backlash or potentially offending someone out there in the ether or anything. And what's the point of having, if you don't have free speech, if you don't use your free speech, you lose your free speech. People have this idea of free speech just being something that's like a policy position, right? Like, oh, the First Amendment in the USA, that's the freedom of speech. Freedom of speech it's also social and cultural, right? What's the point of having so-called freedom of speech if you cannot use it?
It's there. That's why it's so important for minorities.
Yes.
If you really care about multiculturalism, if you really care about minorities, you really care about the marginalized, you'll defend free speech.
You'll defend freedom of speech. And if you want to actually be able to understand the world and solve things, you have to be able to speak. It means sometimes you'll be uncomfortable. Sometimes you won't. You'll hear something you don't like. Every day we're confronted with things that we don't like, we don't find comfortable, we may find offensive. We don't like, but it's like, my reaction is not, okay, we need to censor and ban and deplatform everybody who's espousing those ideas. It's like, okay, well, let's have a conversation. And as very well portrayed in that documentary, when you try to have the conversation and ask questions, you see why they rely on censorship. Yeah. You see why they rely on deplatform, because they don't have an argument. Yeah. You don't, like, if the whole thing is shattered. If I can shatter your whole ideology with one question, a basic one that my 3-4-year-old niece could answer, then what's your whole belief system? What are you standing on? So whilst people are very, very concerned with the way a lot of this stuff is going, I think it's very easily beatable. I don't think this is some huge, yes, it's captured a lot of people, but it's captured far fewer people than I think people realize.
The data tells you that.
Yeah, it's just that people will not speak up, but the number who are willing to is rising. Yeah. So I think that's positive.